Good afternoon, folks. Good to be with you. I'm Gary Habermas, and my first presentation is on the Shroud of Turin. Let me say two things before I start, and then I will introduce the lecture. I don't even know where I am. Is the book room back there? In that corner? I've got a table back there with books, and the reason I'm telling you, I'm not trying to sell a thing, but I do have some books, and they're free. If you want to take these, it went along with the movie that made it to the Christian film that went to the regular movie streaming. There's 4 chapters in here on did Jesus exist, did Jesus perform miracles, did Jesus actually die on the cross, and did he rise from the dead? I brought a number of these, but if I just could ask you to take no more than one per family so we can spread them around, but they are free. And this is Ben down in front. Ben Shaw has been my research assistant for how long? 13, 12, 10? 12 years. While writing those big books, you can see a couple on the table back there. But I'm not pushing any of my things. This is Ben's new book. It's called Trustworthy, 13 Arguments for the Reliability of the New Testament, published by InterVarsity. Just came out, hot off the press. If you're interested in a really good book that you hear a lot of books that they'll tell you here's some arguments, but 13 of them for the reliability of the New Testament. I think you'll be greatly pleased if you stop by, and his table's right next to mine, and get yourself a copy. Well, some of you know I co-authored 2 books on the Shroud many years ago. I mention that because my co-author was a professor at the Air Force Academy, and that's where the Shroud research began in the late 70s, and that was the team that was put together to make the trip over to Turin, Italy. They unloaded tons of material and took thousands and thousands of photographs, virtually any non-destructive test you could do, infrared, ultraviolet, different kinds of spectroscopy, that gave all kinds of information on the cloth. You perhaps also found out that in the recent news, the date of the Shroud has been reevaluated. It started happening a few years ago, but I've got slides on that, so I'll let that one go. But that's where these come from. Most of the slides here are from the scientific investigation. They're from the team, and of course those came from my acquaintance with Ken. But I'm sad to say that probably the best-known Shroud researcher in the world, Barry Schwartz, just passed away a few weeks ago. He was diagnosed with adult leukemia and didn't know what the odds were that he could stretch it out or not, and he died very quickly in just a few weeks. A lot of these slides are his, so I attribute a lot of this to Barry. Barry was he'd tell you, he was a non-Christian Jew, but very, very open to resurrection arguments. I should tell you one thing he says. I'll do this in honor of Barry. He told me once that he said, I do a lot of speaking engagements. He's very popular. He said, I generally go to Baptist churches. They're just the ones that ask me to come. And he said, whenever I come, he said, I'm Jewish. My father's an Orthodox Jew. I was raised Orthodox Jewish. And he said, I appreciate what Christians stand for. I don't have any difference of opinion with them. But he said, I'll bet you I have been told the plan of salvation hundreds of times. And he said, if you know anything about Jews, that offends a lot of Jews because they say they're children of God and whatever else is good for you on the plan of salvation. They have another path given to them by 5 books of the law and God. They're God's chosen people and so on. He said, but I want to tell you something. He said, unlike other Jews, I'm never offended when Christians would give me the plan of salvation. I said, I could repeat it back to you. I know that thing by heart. He said, I never get offended because here's how I reason. He said, they wouldn't be coming to me if they didn't love me. They're presenting it to me, so they love me. And I should at least appreciate what they're doing without getting angry. I just thought that was one of the neatest comments I'd ever heard from somebody. Now, there are some who think that Barry could have been a closet believer before he died. That's between he and the Lord. Like I tell my PhD students, I don't separate the wheat from the tares. That's God's job. Someone told me they saw a sign just the other day. I just heard this, a bumper sticker. You love them, I'll separate them. And then it says God underneath it. Okay. So these are mostly from Barry. They're great photos. They go back a long way. And I'll get started because I'll run out of time before I finish. So if you went to Turin, Italy, for one of many of the Shroud presentations, it's been in a bulletproof case, a fireproof case. It's been in 2 fires, one just about 20 years ago. And you might stand in line for a long time. When this first went on display, people would wait in line for 8, 10 hours. And when they get up there, now it was horizontal, sort of like that. It was horizontal. And I could imagine somebody saying, we waited in line all day to see that? What is it? And you'd have to have somebody point things out to you and so on. Get used to looking at something here. Down the side are burn marks. In between the burn marks is the image that we'll be talking a lot about. And around the burn marks are, you see those little triangular, there's patches put on there by nuns in the Middle Ages who tried to do similarly related pieces of linen to patch the holes from the fire. And the fire burnt it the first time, hundreds of years ago. The fire burnt it in sort of a paper doll kind of fashion. So, you know, when you fold your paper doll, if you put a hole over on this side, it's got a hole on the other side, and they're corresponding. That's how the burns are all the way through it. So you have to kind of gear your eyes to look away from the burns. So you wait in line for 8 hours. You're not going to just stand there and say, great, and walk on. You're going to take a bunch of pictures, even if you can't see anything, right? This is what happens. It was first noticed in 1898 when an Italian photographer tried this. But you take images of the shroud. That's what you saw right there. And here's what your camera said it saw. Naked eye, what the camera's seen. And this is a crucifixion victim, appears to be. There's over 300 whipping wounds on the body. Now you say, well, nobody could stand 300 lashes. But what you do is, I've got some photos later of a Roman flagrum, and it looks like this one had groups of 3s. So you'd say he might have been hit 100 times, 300 divided by 3. But there's marks, you'll be able to see close-ups. There's marks over basically every inch of his body except his face, his forearms, and his feet. Everything else has been beaten. Chest, back, legs, thighs, calves, everything. When I watched the movie years ago, The Passion of the Christ, and I saw them whipping the fellow who played Jesus. And I'd heard that Mel Gibson had used the shroud for some of his punishment for what was given to the figure of Jesus there. And because I knew the shroud image, I thought, they've got him bent over this place and his wrists are tied, but he's going to have to flip over because they're going to have to get his chest and stomach. And sure enough, he was writhing in pain and he flipped over and they started whipping his chest and his stomach. So he is beaten on the chest and the stomach and all over the place. All right. Again, this contrasts on the left, the shroud as it appears to the naked eye. Get used to the burn marks again. On your right, what your camera sees. Now, you say, well, those pictures don't look exactly the same. There's a left-right light-darkness reversal. So on the left-hand picture, naked eye, the face is in the upper left. The feet are down at the bottom. On the right, the face is in the lower right. The feet are up top. That's just one of the oddities. There's a left-right, light, darkness, reversal. Just a lot of strange things going on with whatever caused this image. Here's a close-up of the faith. You waited in line to see the picture on the right. Now that's a little bit better than if you were 20 feet away looking at that. But the one on the left is what the camera sees. And they're both very well-known photos, but the one on the left, because it shows more characteristics. And I'll be coming back to these and pointing things out. For right now, you maybe can notice on the left side, between the man's hair and his face, there's a gap, and the hair seems to be pulled out. And I'll show you the photos later, but it looks like he's got something wrapped around his head. The face cloth is only mentioned twice in Scripture. John chapter 11, Lazarus. John chapter 20, Jesus. But the Greek word means handkerchief. So a lot of people think that when he's laid on the stone, they simply put the cloth over his face. But in both places, John 11, John 20, it says the face cloth was rolled up. And one says tied around the head, one says tied around the face. Now I think, this will date me, but I think of the old Popeye cartoons, the old Three Stooges deals, where when someone had a toothache, they would put a cloth around and tie the thing up on top. That is apparently what this is. Actually, a critical New Testament scholar, a guy was so critical, he was called a God is Dead theologian of the 60s. He wrote 2 pro-Shroud articles, and he made a big point of this rolled up around the head. Something is pulling the beard back. You'll be able to see that photo later. Pulls the beard back, looks like it separates the hair from the face. And they did that because the Jewish law commanded that when you bury a body, you bind the jaw up in death. You close the mouth, you bind the jaw. So it looks like it's following Jewish custom. This is a Renaissance painting. I show you this because it shows you that what's going on with the shroud is old. It's been around for a long time. That at the bottom is approximately how the man was buried, with the cloth going lengthwise. Now, one of the most common questions I get is, I thought they buried him this way. Well, there's nowhere in Scripture that says they buried him that way. Egyptians buried that way. Jews didn't. And whether Jews did or didn't, remember, Jesus was given a hasty burial. They weren't done with the burial process. That's why the women were coming back. So they could have unwrapped the body on Sunday and wrapped it the other way. They could have. Plus, there's been other bodies in Jewish cemeteries wrapped like this. You go, how do you know? The cloth wouldn't still be there. Well, it is sometimes. But the person has the elbows out this way, lying on their back. This isn't this burial. That's this burial. This is this one. So there's nothing wrong with the burial being unbiblical or something like that. But I put it there so you can see the picture. And notice the image was back there hundreds of years ago. The angels are holding up the cloth, and there's the image of it's pretty light if you can see it, but that image was on the cloth hundreds of years ago. And that's the main thing we have to discuss. Okay. I was at Oxford lecturing in 1978, and 3 labs around the world have been working on dating the shroud for months. One of the labs was one of our best universities in Arizona. One was at Oxford University, and one was at a university or a lab in Switzerland. And I was lecturing, strangely enough, in London, lecturing on C.S. Lewis, teaching a course. And the students came in one day and they said, "Did you hear the news? The shroud is a fake." And I thought, it could be, but one of our books had already come out at that time. And the strange thing is, as you'll see as we move on, virtually every test on the shroud makes it look like something's going on a long time ago to somebody who was crucified exactly like the New Testament. That doesn't make it Jesus, but we can talk a little bit about historical epistemology if I have some time here, and how you would possibly connect this to Jesus. But as we had a trip to London that day, and we got on the bus and went down there, and they had stacks of newspapers this big because of the big news. And they were just piles, and they were selling them. And the headline said, Shroud of Turin fake. Shroud of Turin is fake. And that was the headline news in England. Since then, a number of responses have come out, and a couple of them, I think for most people who look at the data, the dating, the 88 carbon dating has been dropped, except for people who, the real radical folks, they may be the same ones who call themselves mythers, who think Jesus never lived, and the shroud is baloney because nothing supernatural is baloney. Time out, a philosophical timeout. What makes me just scream at these kind of arguments are like this. You guys know you're fake. You fake things all the time. You always complain. You always talk, this guy's done this person's done miracles, everything's happening. You think miracles all around, and they never happen when we check them out. Oh yeah, well what is we? Oh, I'm a naturalist, of which a subcategory is atheism. I don't believe in God in any of this, and you got a long way to go to prove anything for me. Okay, here's the timeout. One of the best kept secrets. There's no argument that establishes naturalism. They'll throw the critiques around, and for the sake of let's just say I produce 20 arguments for the resurrection of Jesus. You may not like them, but these are 20 arguments. And what are you disputing with? An argument that says miracles not happen. And what's your data again? Oh, those things don't happen. And they don't happen again because why? Because they don't happen. And you can prove this in a laboratory? Well, they just don't happen. They don't happen in the world. What is your data for these things? A lot of things are coming out right now. You cannot prove naturalism is true. But they will use the non-proof as a backdrop to reject everything you say. You've got reasons. They don't like them, but they've got none. What kind of an argument's that? Anyway, enough. That one is enough to make me just... Because that's the predominant view in the world today, with no arguments that establish it. No matter what they do. Suffering doesn't do it. Evolution doesn't do it. They can't prove their worldview. Okay, 3 responses to carbon-14, the 88 dating. This article came out from the chief chemist on the Shroud team. His name is Ray Rogers, sterling credentials, Los Alamos National Laboratory, University of California, and he published this article just shortly before he died, 2005, Thermochemica Acta, a secular chemical journal, studies on the radiocarbon sample from the Shroud of Turin. I'll just give you some of his excerpts, and this is from the abstract. You know, in journals, you have an abstract, tells you what the article's about. In 88, the Shroud was dated between 1260 and 1290 with 95% confidence. Prompted questions about the validity of the sample. Preliminary estimates indicate a much older date for the cloth than the radiocarbon analysis. Let me tell you something about Ray Rogers, the guy who wrote this. He starts this article out like this. Oh, he's just one of those believers. He thinks anything goes if you believe. Ray wasn't there. And Ray starts his article this way. First of all, let's get something straight. I'm not talking about a miracle here. I'm not saying this is Jesus. I'm not saying it's a miracle. I'm asking you about a scientific discovery, and I'm doing some textile analysis from my background, which is chemistry. But don't give me any garbage about miracles. That's how he starts the article out. Friendly? I mean, whose side is he on? Anyway, I mean, he's a good guy. I'm not saying anything about him. I'm just not saying this is just not like another believer who wants to just put their little stamp there and not have any reasons. Here's his quote. Observations prove that the radiocarbon sample was not part of the original cloth of the Shroud of Turin. The radiocarbon date was thus not valid for determining the true age of the shroud. Here's what he does as a chemist. He had shroud threads. He took threads from the patch that was taken off, and guess what? They're not the same chemistry. One fluoresces, one doesn't. Now, I don't know what all that means. I just know they're not identical if they don't do the same thing. And he just said, boys, you dated the wrong part of the cloth. You probably dated one of those samples. Now, I'll come back to that is, well, anybody who would date one of those little triangle things would be stupid because you can see it's a patch by looking at it. Yeah. No, there's different kinds of patches on the shroud, just like there is today. Let me give you an example. You get home from church and your son says, the boys just called me to play baseball. I'm going to go down to the field and hit the ball around. And dad says, or mom says, Change your pants before you go down to play. Sure, Mom. Didn't change his pants. Slides into second base, rip. Let's just say the rip is small. Mom's got two choices. Do one of those iron-on patches, and his best pants are now his play pants, right? Or she tries to match the thread and do what's called an invisible weave. There's invisible weaves all over the shroud. So no, they probably wouldn't have been silly enough to date the patch, but there are other materials all over the shroud as the nuns tried to cover things up and tried to put the so-called invisible thread on the cloth. So this is a major comeback. You guys dated something that, according to chemical analysis, you dated a part of the cloth that is not part of the cloth. I mean, it's just simple. And like Ray Rogers says, I'm not telling you what my opinion is. I'm telling you what the science says. Chemistry says you got it wrong. That's it. Under the microscope, you got it wrong. Second argument. This just came out very recent. We had the speaker at Liberty University recently, Tristan Casabianca. He put a team together with 2 PhDs, if I remember his group, 2 PhDs in statistics, a textile expert, and he's a professor in France. And they put a Freedom of Information Act in that took years to be answered in the international courts. And they said, we want this dating material, we want the material to see what you did on this test and what happened. They didn't get it for years. They finally got it, and here's what they found. The dates on the shroud were on the samples, which, as Ray says, is not part of the cloth. But the dates were all over the place, down through the centuries apart. And so what did you all do? You ready? We averaged the dates. And the statistician said, that's the silliest thing you can do. Why don't you have a degree in statistics? You would know what you're doing is just dumb. You don't average dates. That doesn't tell you that the date's somewhere in the middle of all the other dates. So here's where we are now. We don't know what date the shroud is. Now, I know some material has just come out from a pretty popular British non-religious publication that there's a new dating technique found. It gets it pretty close to the 1st century, doesn't give you an exact date, but it's plus or minus, X, depending on which test. A lot of tests have been run. One was within 500 years of the cloth. One was 100 years of the cloth. But we don't really know how old the cloth is, but it's not an average of all those dates. So this was published. And you know what's pretty cool about this argument? That journal, the Oxford Journal Archaeometry, I believe I heard, now I could be wrong on this, but I think I heard that the guy who's the editor of that journal was involved in the 88 carbon-14, and he thought this was a worthwhile article to publish in rebuttal. So the dates have to be redone somehow, and that's a big problem with politics and everything else. But what's wrong is the carbon-14 date. Here's a third argument. This is going to take a while to develop. I think this is maybe the most persuasive argument against the shroud that you see being medieval. On the right is a medieval painting, and a lot of medieval paintings look like, when you see it, you go, oh, that's Jesus. It's just a recognizable face image on a lot of art. Notice a couple things about the face on the right. Notice that as the person's looking straight on, notice the hair goes down both sides of the face. Now, you're going to be able to see this more clearly, but on one side it's in the back, and the other side it's out in the front. The beard looks like a little pointed beard, a cleft beard that you sometimes see on goatees or beards, but that's not really what it is. Notice it's off center. If you draw a line down the part in the hair, all the way down to the middle of the chin, the opening in the beard is about here. It's moved over a little bit. Something's going on there, and you'll be able to see real clearly what it is. Why do they paint Jesus the line across his forehead? Why do they paint Jesus with a triangle between his eyes? You're going to see this very prominently. Why a triangle between the eyes? Why a long, abnormally slender-looking nose? Why, this one probably is my favorite, why the two lines, I hope you can see it, why the two lines under the throat? Here's the beard ends. And there's a line here, and there's a line further down. Why? Let me give you a hint. Those are wrinkles. Look on the left side. Those are wrinkles. Look all the way at the bottom of the left-hand photo. Those are wrinkles in the original cloth. Now, if you believe this is Jesus, and you're painting Jesus, and there's a line down here, in fact, there's two, if you see it, you put them in. It's authentic. It's Jesus. I'm not going to be the one to take the lines out. Two lines. Why is the beard separated? Look at the beard on the left. It's separated the same way. Why does the nose look so long and cylindrical? There's a blood stain at the base of the nose that makes the nose look longer. Why is there a triangle between the eyes? Ben, I hope you folks can see the details, but if you look on the left side, there is a triangle between the eyes. Why in the 10th century are you painting Jesus with these marks? You know why? Well, at least we know that Shroud is pre-10th century. Because how do you answer the double beard on the wrong, a little bit off, two lines on the throat, the long nose, the hair on the same line, this line across the forehead, and the triangle between the eyes? This is just too much. In some of the pictures that they paint, Jesus is beaten up. Why is a healthy Jesus in an earlier painting before the cross beaten up? Because I told you the one on the right is authentic, and I'm trying to make it look authentic. Yeah, well, the guy on the left is beat up. It's just some crazy thinking here, but you have to explain these. So here's some examples. This is one of the oldest pieces of art depicting Jesus. This piece of art dates from the 6th century AD. Now, there's no double-pointed beard. Okay, that's a point, the other favorite. Now, you can't see the forehead is too light. The line across the forehead, there's a triangle between the eyes. The nose looks abnormally long. The hair, notice it's out in front on the left, it's behind on the right. And look at those marks underneath the beard. He looks like he's got a short beard here, and look at that V-shaped line going across the neck down here. Why? Because I'm using an authentic image of Jesus. He was like crucified to this thing or something. So I'm going to do it the right way. Okay, this is 6th century AD. How can you get a date of 1280 AD when you got an image of something that looks like the exact same thing? What would that be? I'll get my math wrong here, but it's like, what, 8 centuries earlier? What were they looking at 8 centuries earlier? Now, it's not 1st century, but it's not 1288 either. These are some of my favorite photos. In the 7th century AD, Rome printed little tiny gold coins. They would look like a dime, maybe smaller than a dime. Now remember, the Roman Empire was declared a Christian nation by Constantine in the 4th century. Well, a few centuries later, they published these coins, and there's different kinds of coins. I mean, like one might look like the size of a dime, and one might be the size of a nickel. But they're gold coins. You can still purchase these. A friend of mine bought the set with the help of a numismatist who found these. And the coins would say something like King of Kings and Lord of Lords around the coin. And now, the one at the bottom in the middle is a shroud image. Now, they made it kind of a gold look, so it just looks like the same kind of color. That's the man in the shroud. Upper left is one of the coins. Notice what's behind his head looks like a cross. And the face, we'll get that in a second. Upper right is the shroud photo put over the coin photo to see how many similarities there are. But notice the coin. Look at the part down the middle, hair down on the right, out in front on the left. The beard is cut just a little bit to the right of the image if you put a line straight down. The line going across the forehead, that triangle starts way up here in the coin, and it comes down between the eyes. And look in the upper left, look at the two lines under the beard. Why do you put those two lines under Jesus' face, believing this to be Jesus? Why do you put those lines there? Because I have the original. I was copying off the original. I want it to be authentic. I know what the lines are, but they're there, so I put them there. People didn't wear, that was not the trend for beards in those days. It's the long kind. And as we'll see in a couple more, the man in the shroud has the long kind. And you'll also be able to see the effect of the tie back too. All right, so if these images are pre-1288 by a long shot, going all the way back to the 6th century, if the coins are the end of the 7th century, the coins are about 1690 to about 1710. I'm sorry, 690 to 710 in the Roman Empire. These coins are out there, you can see them. They obviously have in mind some object that was around at that time, proving the carbon-14 to be incorrect. And so the three arguments: you use the wrong cloth, you don't average dates, and thirdly, what do you do with all the stuff that's around way before the time you say the shroud should be dated? All right, here's the right eye of the man in the shroud, a photograph. I'll just tell you, there's dispute about this among the scientists who did investigation, but this is a lepton. Remember Pontius Pilate and so on? All right, on the right side is, can you see, folks see this where you're sitting? It looks like one of those psychological tests where you're going to look at this and say, I don't know, I see a tree out in the field with someone's fishing and he got a trout. It's like, okay, good job. But look in the upper left-hand corner, the letters U-C-A-I. And what looks like a staff in the middle that may or may not be a staff, but those letters are what's interesting. They now have, you can see other little writings around there, they now have about 3 more letters. What you're looking at is a lepton of Pontius Pilate, minted between 29 and 32 AD. On the name of the coin, it says Tiberius Caesar, who died about well, depending on when you date Jesus' death. He would have died about 4 to 7 years after Jesus died, Tiberius Caesar. Guess what, critics say? Can't be correct. They spelled Tiberius Caesar's name wrong. Well, as one guy said, like Jews care if they spell the Roman emperor's name wrong, you know? But here's the real comeback. I saw a numismatic article years ago in a numismatic publication, secular, and it said, a half dozen leptons have now been discovered with the same misspelling of Tiberius Caesar's name. I mean, you don't make these things up. At least you could put it out there as data. It doesn't prove it's Jesus, doesn't prove it's his resurrection, but you have to mix all these things into the pot. This is when the 1978 investigation started. This is in Turin, Italy. That's John Jackson sitting on the stool. For a long time, John and Eric Jumper, you'll see them together in a moment, they were probably the best-known shroud researchers. John is a PhD in theoretical physics, Colorado State University. Before that, the Colorado Air Force Academy. And they're sitting around here, men and women, because they're going to have the shroud for days, and they're going to take thousands of photos. So you're just going to see some of these. I'm going to go through them real fast. That's John in the middle of the picture with the stripes on the shirt. That's Eric Jumper. You can see his name. If you get close enough here, it says Jumper on his name tag. That's Vernon Brewer over in the, Vernon Brewer, wrong guy. Vernon Brewer's in charge of World Help, a great Christian organization for helping people in times like the ones we've been having. This is Vern Miller, a Mormon, which tells you there's a typical cross-section of Americans. He taught at the Brooks Institute of Photography in California. And here's what they're doing. They're taking the backing off the shroud for the first time. They want to ask this question. We know the blood goes all the way through the cloth. That's what blood does. But is the image on the back of the cloth? Answer, no. And they're taking pictures of this. Okay, what kind of an image is not going to go through the cloth? Stay tuned. Okay, this is Sam Pellicore from the Jet Propulsion Lab in California. Sam looks like a hippie with long hair and a beard there. Look, do you enjoy his flower power shirt? I used to have a few of those myself. They're really cool. But he's a scientist, and he's doing electron microscope work on the face. How do you know? When you get used to looking at it, he's looking at the face, but look down to the left. See the hands crossed in front? You can tell where on the shroud he's looking and doing his microscopic work. By the way, an agnostic. Typical American cross-section of scientists. This is sticky tape samples that Kodak made for the team. They're lifting material off the shroud. They found a lot. I wish I could just sit here and talk about it. Just a couple of these. This looks like infrared or something, but it's actually ultraviolet. Photographs, the shroud is all strapped up on the table. You saw it earlier, the table behind John Jackson. That was made specifically for these photos. Still taking data on the shroud. This all happened in 1978. Now, the next two photos are not normal colorations of the shroud. These are image enhancement photos so that everything the same density as blood shows up red. Whoever this person is, he's been beaten up very seriously. By the way, look at the wrinkle right below the beard. There's blood in the wrinkle. So that's an authentic, cloth on, off. And you're starting to see what I mean here by the beard being longer. Here's another one. Everything the same density as blood, like look at the side wound there underneath the patch. Shows up red. Notice the wound in the left wrist with the blood flowing up the wrist. We don't see the wound in the right wrist, but it's flowing up the wrist there, so presumably there's a hole in both wrists. There are many of these photos. These are called photomicrographs. To a lot of people, they're very valuable. This is a close-up of a blood stain. Now, when I first started doing this, I started saying, if this is authentic, you could be looking at the blood stain of Jesus. And then I saw a look on the people's faces when I was speaking. I thought, I'm not going to say that anymore. Because the looks on the faces, I'm not here to create any kind of a, wow, this must be it. That must really be his blood. We can be sure this is Jesus. No, it's not that tight. The argument's not that tight, but it could be the real thing. This could be Jesus' blood. And in the middle of the light thread, right in the middle of the picture, it's a silvery kind of thing, and there's a couple of silvery threads if you're right on top of it. Those are image threads. The red is the blood. The blood goes through, the image is not. If you take a fibril, and let's say the fibril is made up, the thread is made up of 200 fibrils. The image is on the top fibril only. We know nothing in science that says you could put something on like a cloth and it's not two fibrils underneath, and it doesn't go on the back. Whatever it was, it has the characteristics of a scorch on the tip of on the surface of the cloth. This is 3D. Until just recently, I would have said that this was the number one thing that's difficult to explain on the shroud. These are 3D faces. Oh, this is a good photo. See the beard? See the wrinkle underneath the beard? And see the beard goes all the way down below that? That's how you know this man had a long beard. It's in the 3D image. And then you see the second wrinkle underneath that, two wrinkles. You can see a little button-like, which may be those coins over the eyes. They're kind of, if that's a view you take, like I said, there's a difference on the coins. I don't know why this green photo turned sideways. This is a very popular photo. You see it around a lot of places, but it's another 3D photo. We don't have 3D photos today. You can hear people say that, but here's why 3D is important. If the man is lying on his back like this, and he's flat, the cloth would hit the high points, the forehead, the chin, the chest, the arms crossed, but not the stomach, not the rib cage. How about when you go down? The left knee has been pulled up in a state of rigor mortis, so the left knee is like this. Well, of course the cloth is going to be over the knee, but what about the right knee? How come you can see the right knee? How come you can see areas in the shroud that don't touch the cloth? A real enigma. Whatever caused the image had to jump across space of a few centimeters to put the image on the cloth, and the image is only in the top fibril. People can say they can explain it. Christians can say. I think both sides are lacking a little bit here, but there's no miracles in the world. We don't have any things like this. They need to at least keep studying here, look at some things. But now this is a cardboard readout of the VPA image analyzer. This is the data from the 3D image. There's a model of the flagrum, a drawing of the flagrum. There's a close-up of the back wound. But I'll tell you what took over for 3D, what is now probably the toughest thing to explain on the shroud. Here's some back wounds. Look on the left side. That's the blood that flowed down from the chest, comes down. Now it's going across the waist. Look up the close-up on the right. This person has been made to either carry a heavy object and or rub on a heavy object after the whipping, because the blood from the whipping is smeared. Look at the bottom right-hand picture. The feet, the calves, the thighs and the calves. Forensic scholars, you know what they can tell? There were at least 2 men doing the whipping. One was significantly taller and one was left-handed. You know, you see these cop movies on television? That's how they do this stuff. Here's drawings on the nails. They think the left foot was put over the right because the foot is frozen in rigor mortis and the left foot is like this, toward the right. There's a close-up of the wound. Drawing of where the heart wound goes in between the 5th and 6th rib. There's the wound. It's just about 2 inches across at the site of the wound itself. This now is, for some people, the most difficult thing to explain on the cloth. Critics looked at this years ago, a couple decades, and they said, this thing is stupid. Look how long his fingers are. His fingers, they look like they're, what's it, guy, 7 feet tall? I mean, he's got, well, one medical doctor from Duke Medical School took a photograph of the human hand, put it next to it. Guess why the fingers look so long? Because you're looking at the bone structure all the way up the hand, because this is like an X-ray. This is how X-rays look. That's why the fingers look really long. All right, now the one that really kills me, look at the 2 pictures once again. We're way too far away, but on the left-hand side, you can see it on the right-hand side, but on the left-hand side, underneath the lip, you see a bunch of little tiny points going across the lip. Those are believed to be teeth. They're not teeth because somebody ripped the skin. They're teeth because the teeth are being seen through the skin, like the fingers are being seen here. The teeth are being shown. How do you get teeth coming up out of the image? Now, in the early days of lecturing, Ken and I used to say, people would say, well, did the image go down or did the image come out? We say, first of all, we haven't said this is Jesus. We don't want to be going too far too fast, but something's going on here. But the image, a doctor stopped me one time in the front row and said, the image is coming out. How do you know? Because it took the image of the teeth out onto the X-ray. Not coming in this way, it's coming out this way. Okay, now watch how close this looks. Human skull and the skull of the man in the shroud. Look how the teeth go right around and keep right on going. See how the teeth can be seen through? And you're looking on the left-hand side, the teeth of the man in the shroud, and they look like they're blood brothers, the 2 sides of the picture. And this is from the same medical doctor from Duke Medical School. All right, that's it. And I'm right on time, not bad. This is the end of it. I'll leave this picture up here because that's the one where you can see the little marks underneath the teeth. And those are some things that have to be solved. Why is the image only on the surface? It's superficial. That's called superficial. How do you get a 3D image? And why does virtually every test that's been run, it looks like the image on the shroud is caused by radiation. But think about it. Radiation from a dead body. Think about this. Dead bodies don't do much. Why is radiation coming from a dead body? The chemist from Eastern Michigan University who discovered this first, the chemist there said this: I can think of 3 ways you can get what appears to be X-ray from a dead body. Number 1, the man ate some X-ray, vegetation, lettuce, whatever, that was radioactive. He said, but I have to remember, if it caused this bad of a radiation thing, that guy would be dead. So that doesn't work. Maybe, like John the Baptist, he lived in a cave, and maybe the cave had some radiation somehow in the rock. But no, if it was that strong enough to leave an image, he'd be dead. He said, I'm a scientist. That's the best I can do. Anything else is mystery and religion. I can't go there. My PhD in chemistry doesn't give me a conclusion on that. And that's how he ended it. It was a lead article that was published years ago by Giles Carter, Eastern Michigan University, on what apparently is some sort. They've said, a few people have said 2 different kinds of radiation on the cloth. I'll let you make your decision for yourself. I'm interviewed a fair amount of times, and they'll say, how sure are you that it's Jesus? Sometimes it'll just be in a smart aleck, and I'll say, it depends on what side of the bed I got up on in the morning. Sometimes it's raining outside, I was going to go fishing today, I'm not in a very good mood. 80. Well, 80 on one of my students' exams at grad level, it's an F. But if it's sunny and nice and I can go fishing, 90. That's pretty good when I finished my reading last night. I go up and down, I don't really know. I think it could very, very, very well be Jesus' burial cloth. I wrote an article earlier about history and the shroud image, how you put the 2 together. Here's the best comeback, I think. What if they killed some poor soul, crucified him, mimicked Jesus in every way with the New Testament right there, mimicked him, killed him, buried him, and that's why we have an image of somebody at some later time who looks like Jesus. Here's my comeback. Really? All right, give me the superficial wound, give me the 3D wound, give me the image that appears to be radiation, and I'll consider your fake theory. But until you can answer those things, killing a guy to look like this and just happy to have radiation on the cloth, that's 3D, that's superficial, yeah, keep looking. So, I don't know, don't have a conclusion beyond that, I'll leave it right there. Thanks. Don't forget the books. This is Ben's, this one's free. So if you want to stop down there, hope you can use them. Oh, and as I said, please just take 1 per family. I didn't bring that many, I just got a couple dozen. So you're welcome to them.